Have you ever wondered why some people choose to become monsters? Not the kind that hide under your bed. Not the kind born in nightmares. I'm talking about monsters created in broad daylight. People who look just like us, who breathe the same air, who smile exactly like everyone else. And yet, behind their eyes lurks a void so deep, so cold, that once you stare long enough, you begin to understand why entire cities locked their doors at night, why investigators refuse to sleep, why victims' families still wake up thinking they heard footsteps in the hallway. Serial killers force us to confront a terrifying truth. Evil doesn't always wear a mask. Sometimes it wears a human face. Today, we're diving into the 13 most horrifying serial killer documentaries ever made. Films that don't just tell a story. They haunt you long after they end. Prepare yourself. Some of these cases are disturbing, some are unbelievable, and some will make you rethink everything you believe about human nature. Let's begin. Point 1. The Night Stalker, The Hunt for a Serial Killer, 2021. The story of Richard Ramirez is not just the retelling of a killing spree. It's a descent into a shadow so dark, so chaotic, it changed the city of Los Angeles forever. The documentary places you right inside the panic. Families buying new locks, people sleeping with the lights on, and neighborhoods where every sound at night felt like a warning. Ramirez wasn't just a murderer. He was unpredictable, violent, erratic. He didn't follow patterns. He didn't choose a type. He attacked the elderly, the young, men, women, anyone unlucky enough to cross his path. What makes the documentary so chilling is the way it reconstructs the fear. The late-night news reports, the frantic detectives connecting impossible clues, and the city's collective gasp when a simple fingerprint cracked the case. The film shows the worst part of human cruelty, but also the power of an entire community rising up to stop a monster. This documentary doesn't just tell you what happened. It makes you feel what it was like to live through it. 2. Conversations with a Killer, the Ted Bundy tapes, 2019. If evil had a charming voice, it would sound exactly like Ted Bundy. This documentary is a psychological nightmare, not because of the violence, but because of how normal Bundy tried to sound. Through the recovered tapes, Bundy manipulates, gaslights, and twists reality. He talks like a student, a politician, a friend, a man convinced he could talk his way out of the fires of hell. The most disturbing part, he almost did. Bundy weaponized charisma. Like a tool. He smiled, he charmed, he pretended to care, and the documentary forces you to listen to him, to understand how he slipped through cracks in the legal system, how he escaped custody twice. But beneath the smooth voice and well-chosen words, there's a chilling emptiness, a complete lack of empathy. The film reveals the danger of underestimating someone simply because they look too normal to be a killer. Bundy teaches us one lesson: monsters don't always look monstrous. 3. The Jinx, The Life and Deaths of Robert Durst, 2015. Robert Durst isn't like the others on this list. He doesn't stalk the streets. He doesn't hunt strangers. His violence operates in the shadows of wealth and privilege. What makes The Jinx horrifying isn't just the crimes. It's the slow, suffocating realization that this man spent decades slipping away from justice. Durst was eccentric, wealthy, unpredictable, but always one step ahead. Until he wasn't. The documentary unfolds like a thriller. Old case files, missing persons, a decapitated body in Texas, and a suspicious trail that always seemed to lead back to him. But then comes the moment that transformed a documentary into history. Durst, alone in a bathroom with a hot mic still recording, whispers the words that made the world freeze. "What the hell did I do?" Killed them all, of course. It's one of the most shocking moments ever captured on film. Not because of the confession, but because of the cold, almost casual tone. Durst didn't slip. He revealed what he always knew about himself. And the documentary makes you ask, how many others are out there? Smiling, talking, blending in, who carry the same darkness behind their eyes. For Don't FK with Cats, Hunting an Internet Killer, 2019, this is not a typical serial killer documentary. It begins with something almost unbelievable. A group of ordinary people on the internet who refuse to ignore a disturbing video. What starts as a digital manhunt quickly turns into one of the most intense, fast-paced investigations ever captured on film. Luca Magnotta was not a traditional serial killer, but he possessed the same hunger for attention, the same narcissism, the same fascination with cruelty. The documentary shows the rise of a killer built by the internet, a man who crafted his image, performed for the camera, and escalated his crimes for an audience he hoped would never look away. But people did look, and they refused to let him hide. This story isn't only about murder, it's about obsession, digital footprints, and a new kind of predator created in the age of social media. The most disturbing part? Magnotta wanted to be famous, and in the worst possible way. He succeeded. 5. The Staircase, 2004 to 2018. Some documentaries are terrifying because of the brutality, others because of the uncertainty. The Staircase belongs to the second category, a case so twisted, so full of contradictions, that even after 13 episodes you still may not know the truth. The documentary follows novelist Michael Peterson, accused of murdering his wife Kathleen, a woman found at the bottom of the stairs in a scene that doesn't look like a fall. Not even close. Blood patterns that make no sense. Wounds. Too deep. A timeline that feels stretched. A husband whose reactions are unusual. But then comes the twist. Peterson had a long history of secrets, affairs, financial pressure, and a previous acquaintance who also died at the bottom of a staircase. Coincidence or pattern? The beauty and horror of The Staircase is that it doesn't guide you. It doesn't tell you what to believe. It simply holds up a magnifying glass and forces you to choose. Did a man commit the perfect crime? Or did the justice system destroy an innocent life? The documentary shows the terrifying thin line between guilt and innocence, and how fragile the truth can be. 6. Killer Inside, The Mind of Aaron Hernandez, 2020. Some killers grow up in darkness. Others are shaped by it. Aaron Hernandez was a superstar, a talented NFL athlete with fame, money, and a future brighter than stadium lights. But behind closed doors, his world was collapsing. Violent upbringing, identity struggles, toxic relationships, gang ties, and a brain ravaged by chronic traumatic encephalopathy, a condition that can twist aggression into something uncontrollable. The documentary is disturbing not because the crimes were hidden, but because they were committed by someone millions admired. 1 moment, he was scoring touchdowns. The next, he was a convicted murderer. The film pulls you into a psychological storm, a tragic cocktail of trauma, pressure, and a mind slowly fracturing. It forces you to ask, was Hernandez evil or broken? The answer isn't simple, and that's exactly why this documentary stays with you. 7. The Sons of Sam, A Descent into Darkness, 2021. Most documentaries stop at the killer. This one goes deeper, into the shadows that remain even after a monster is caught. David Berkowitz, the son of Sam, terrorized New York City in 1976. Random shootings, taunting letters, and a public fear that turned every dark street into a possible crime scene. But the documentary takes a dangerous turn, exploring the theory that Berkowitz didn't act alone. Investigative journalist Maury Terry dedicated his life to uncovering a network that may have included cults, rituals, and accomplices the police never pursued. Whether Terry was right or wrong isn't the point. What matters is the obsessive hunt for truth, and how chasing monsters can sometimes turn you into one. The documentary leaves you with a chilling idea. Sometimes the scariest part of a case isn't the killer, but everything that still doesn't make sense. 8. Aileen, Life and Death of a Serial Killer, 2003, Aileen Wuornos might be one of the most tragic figures in the history of American crime. A woman who lived a life filled with abandonment, abuse, poverty, exploitation, and a violent spiral that ended in 7 murders. The documentary doesn't defend her nor condemn her. Instead, it asks a haunting question. Can a person become a killer simply because the world never gave them a chance to be anything else? As Aileen sits on death row, filmmaker Nick Broomfield interviews her, and what unfolds is devastating. Aileen shifts between rage, paranoia, moments of clarity, and heartbreaking honesty. You can see trauma written on her face. You can hear decades of pain in her voice. She was a predator, yes, but also a victim of a world that showed her more cruelty than compassion. The documentary doesn't excuse murder, it simply reveals a terrifying truth. Hurt people can become deadly people, and society often notices too late. 9. The Jeffrey Dahmer tapes /Dahmer on Dahmer, 2017 to 2022. Jeffrey Dahmer's crimes are so gruesome that describing them feels like speaking about nightmares. But they happened, behind locked apartment doors, behind a polite smile, behind the face of a man who neighbors described as quiet and friendly. The documentaries about Dahmer didn't just recount the horrors, they expose systemic failure. Police who ignored warnings, victims dismissed because they belonged to marginalized communities, and a killer who operated in plain sight. What makes these films so disturbing just the way Dahmer speaks? Calm, measured, almost gentle, he describes the unthinkably as if he were talking about his grocery list. The psychological disconnect is chilling. No rage, no chaos, just cold, calculated detachment. The documentaries force viewers to confront how a monster can hide inside an ordinary man, and how society can overlook danger when it refuses to see certain people as victims. 10. H. Holmes, America's first serial killer, 2004. Long before modern forensics, DNA, or even widespread police communication, H. Holmes was building something unthinkable, a murder castle. A labyrinth of secret rooms, false hallways, doors that locked from the outside, hidden chutes leading directly to the basement, and chambers designed for suffering. Holmes wasn't just a killer, he was an architect of horror. The documentary digs into this 19th century nightmare. A man who blended charm with genius, criminality with creativity, and murder with business. What makes it horrifying is not just the brutality, but the innovation. Holmes anticipated modern serial killers before the term even existed. He manipulated victims, moved freely across states, and crafted a building designed to erase people without leaving a trace. Watching this documentary feels like looking at the blueprint of evil. Holmes wasn't ahead of his time, he was beyond it. 11. The Grim Sleeper, The Lost Women of South Central, 2014. Some serial killers hide in the shadows. Others hide in society's blind spots. The Grim Sleeper tells the story of Lonnie Franklin Jr., a man who murdered for 25 years in a community ignored by the media, neglected by law enforcement, and repeatedly failed by the system. Franklin didn't need to vanish into the wilderness or flee across borders. He operated from his own neighborhood, his own home, his own backyard. He targeted vulnerable women, people society rarely protects and almost never listens to. The most chilling part of the documentary isn't the killer himself, but the silence around him. Missing women reports dismissed, families begging for answers, evidence overlooked, voices unheard. It raises a terrifying question. How many serial killers succeed not because they're genius or skilled, but because their victims aren't considered important enough? The documentary is a brutal reminder that indifference can be deadlier than any weapon. 2. The Keepers, 2017. This documentary isn't marketed as a serial killer story, but make no mistake, it belongs on this list. Because what happened to Sister Catherine Cessnock wasn't an isolated act of violence. It was the beginning of a chain of horrors that revealed predators hiding behind the walls of an institution supposed to protect souls. The Keepers unfolds like a mystery, but beneath it lies the darkest truth of all: that evil can infiltrate sacred places, schools, churches, confessions, and operate undetected for decades. The documentary follows former students who refuse to forget their teacher, refuse to accept silence, refuse to let her memory disappear. Their investigation uncovers a disturbing network of abuse, cover-ups, and a chilling conspiracy to keep victims quiet. The horror isn't loud. It isn't cinematic. It's quiet, suffocating, and unbearably human. It's the kind of evil that grows in institutions where reputation matters more than truth. Watching The Keepers feels like watching a wound open, slowly, painfully, until everything inside is exposed. 13. Paradise Lost Trilogy, 1996 to 2011. This is not a story about a serial killer. It's a story about what happens when the wrong people are labeled as killers. The Paradise Lost films follow the case of the West Memphis 3 teenagers accused of murdering 3 young boys in a horrific crime that shook the entire country. The documentary exposes a justice system willing to sacrifice truth in favor of fear, panic, and public pressure. Authorities painted the teenagers as Satanists, monsters, predators, not because of evidence, but because of appearance, music taste, and moral hysteria. The result? 3 innocent teenagers sentenced to life in prison, one of them to death row. The documentaries force viewers to confront the darkest question of all. What if the real monster was never caught? What if the killer walked away while innocent kids sat behind bars for almost 2 decades? The Paradise Lost trilogy is horrifying not because of the crime, but because of the system that refused to admit it made a mistake. It reveals a reality more terrifying than any serial killer, that an entire society can turn on you without evidence and sleep just fine. Section. Why these documentaries haunt us. Documentaries about serial killers hit differently than fictional horror, because everything you see, every victim, every crime scene, every tear, every unanswered question, is real. These films force us to confront the most unsettling truths about humanity. 1. Anyone can hide a monster inside them. Killers can be charming, successful, friendly, invisible. Evil rarely looks like a movie villain. It looks like the neighbor who waves at you every morning. Point 2. Systems fail, sometimes catastrophically. Corrupt investigations, overlooked evidence, ignored victims, bias, prejudice, and human error can let killers operate for years. Or worse, can put the wrong people behind bars. Point 3. Trauma doesn't fade. Families keep searching for answers. Communities never forget the fear. Survivors carry the darkness for the rest of their lives. Point 4. Evil adapts. From the streets of Los Angeles to the internet era to organized crime institutions that hide predators, there is no single type of killer. Evil evolves with society, and sometimes faster. Point 5. Curiosity comes with a price. Watching these documentaries means peering into the abyss. And as Nietzsche warned, the longer you stare into the abyss, the more it stares back. When we watch true crime documentaries, we often convince ourselves we're simply observers, safe, distant, untouched. But the truth is, these stories leave fingerprints on the mind. Not because of the violence, not because of the killers, but because they reveal something we try very hard to ignore. Monsters don't come from shadows, they come from us. Every killer in these documentaries was once a child, once innocent, once shaped, slowly, painfully, by trauma, neglect, obsession, opportunity, or darkness they couldn't control. Some were born into chaos. Some were sculpted by it. Some embraced their own emptiness. and some hid behind masks so convincing that even the people closest to them never saw the cracks until it was far too late. These films don't just expose crimes, they expose people, every possible side of them. The victims who had dreams, families, voices, who didn't expect their story to end the way it did. The investigators, haunted by the cases they couldn't solve, or the truths they couldn't face. The families, shattered in ways most of us will never understand. The killers, each an unsettling reminder that evil can grow anywhere. In privilege, in poverty, in chaos, in routine, in loneliness, in silence. When you watch these documentaries, you're not just learning what happened, you're learning how it happened. And that is the most terrifying part. The psychology of fear. Why we WATCH people often ask the same question. Why do we watch this? Why do we look at darkness on purpose? But the answer is simple and deeply human. Point one. We want to understand danger. The unknown is terrifying. Understanding it gives us a sense of control. The more we learn about evil, the better we believe we can avoid it. Point two. We want to protect ourselves. These stories sharpen the instincts. The wrong smile, the wrong tone, the wrong nice guy persona. Documentaries teach us what safety never does, that danger rarely looks dangerous. Point three. We face the shadows so they don't own us. When we look directly at darkness, we reclaim power, we refuse to fear what's hidden. Point four. We are fascinated by the edges of humanity. Serial killers live on the borders of what a human mind can be. Seeing those borders makes us reflect on our own humanity. Point five. Because these stories matter. Behind every case, there are voices that deserve to be heard. Victims whose lives were cut short, families searching for answers, communities changed forever. Watching is not morbid curiosity, it's acknowledgement. And acknowledgement is a form of respect. The pattern you aren't supposed to look at all 13 documentaries. Different killers, different eras, different motives, different victims, and yet, a pattern appears. A pattern society rarely admits. Here is the hidden truth. Serial killers don't succeed because they're geniuses. They succeed because systems fail, because warning signs are ignored, because some victims' lives are seen as less important, because institutions protect their reputation, not the people inside them, because communities assume evil looks obvious, when most of the time, it looks perfectly ordinary. This is the real horror behind every documentary. Monsters don't thrive in darkness. They thrive in blindness, and when we refuse to see, they continue to grow. The final message. Before you look at WAY, if you've made it this far, you've walked through 13 stories that expose the truth about humanity. The good, the evil, the broken, and the terrifyingly unpredictable. But before we close this chapter, there's one more thing you need to hear. Every documentary on this list is more than entertainment, more than shock, more than a retelling of crimes. Each one is a reminder, a warning, a lesson carved in tragedy, a reminder that justice isn't guaranteed, that safety isn't promised, that evil doesn't need a reason, that victims deserve to be remembered, that silenced voices still echo long after the world stops listening. And maybe the darkest truth of all, the only thing separating us from chaos is how much attention we're willing to pay. Because the moment society stops looking, stops questioning, stops caring, that's when darkness grows its fastest. These documentaries exist to prevent that. To keep the memories alive. To keep the warnings alive. To keep us alive. So the next time you watch a true crime film, don't just see a killer. See the system that allowed him to exist. See the people whose stories deserve better. See the world for what it truly is: dangerous, fragile, and full of unseen shadows. And remember this: evil doesn't hide under your bed, it walks beside you. But knowledge is a light, and even the darkest shadows can't survive the moment you shine that light on them.